Good afternoon everyone, I'm Nelson. On behalf of our group, welcome to our financial consultation presentation for Sri Rasa Urban Dining. Today, we analyze Sri Rasa financial position, evaluate the two proposed strategies, and recommend a practical way for the business to return to profitability. Our presentation has four main parts. First, we introduce the business problem. Second, we analyze profitability, liquidity, and efficiency. Third, we evaluate the two proposed strategies, online delivery and kitchen automation. Finally, we'll present our recommendations and key performance indicators. Sri Rasa is a medium-sized upscale restaurant in Kuala Lumpur. It serves around 80,000 meals a year with an average selling price of RM45 per meal. At first glance, the business seemed to be growing. Revenue increased from RM3.2 million to RM3.6 million. However, profit moved in the opposite direction. Sri Rasa went from an RM80,000 profit in 2024 to an RM180,000 net loss in 2025. That's a negative swing of RM260,000 in 1 year. This tells us something important. Just because revenue is growing does not mean the business is financially healthy. The main issue is not weak demand. The issue is the costs are rising faster than revenue, and the current cost structure is too heavy for the restaurant sales volume. I will now hand over to Ewan, who will begin our financial analysis.
Thank you, Nelson. I'm Ewan, and I will be presenting the financial analysis section. Looking at the profitability, revenue grew by 12.5%, but food and beverage costs grew at 23.75%, nearly double the rate. This is our first warning sign because costs are growing much faster than revenue. As a result, gross profit margin fell from 50% to 45%. To explain, gross profit margin is gross profit divided by revenue. In 2025, for every RM100 for revenue, Sri Rasa kept only RM45 after food costs, down from RM50 the year before. That RM5 difference may seem small, but across RM3.6 million in revenue, it has a major impact on profitability. Net profit margin moved from positive 2.5% to negative 5%. This means Sri Rasa is selling more, but keeping less, and eventually making a loss. Revenue growth alone cannot protect profitability if variable costs are not controlled. Next, the cost structure. Variable costs, mainly food and beverage, rose by 23.75% from RM1.6 million to RM1.98 million. For VCP purpose, staff costs, rent, utilities, and other operating expenses are treated as fixed costs because they do not change directly with each meal served. Fixed costs total RM1.8 million in 2022, made up of staff at RM972,000, rent at RM360,000, utilities at RM216,000, and other operating costs at RM252,000. The key insight here is that fixed costs stay constant regardless of sales volume. Sri Rasa pays RM1.8 million in fixed costs whether it serves 60,000 meals or 100,000 meals. This creates a problem if volume falls even slightly below break-even. Losses accumulate quickly, and as our CVP analysis will show, that is exactly what happened. What makes this more concerning is that even costs classified as fixed are rising. Utilities surged 35%, staff costs rose 21.5%, and other operating expenses grow 26%. This should be stable, but external pressure like wage inflation and higher energy prices are making even the fixed cost base unstable. This is not a short-term problem. It stressed the business has long-term cost problem. Now let's look at the liquidity, which shows whether the business can meet its short-term obligations. The current ratio fell from 1.43 to exactly 1. This means Sri Rasa has RM1 of current assets for every RM1 of current liabilities. This is almost no safety buffer. Cash also dropped sharply from RM150,000 to RM60,000, while short-term loans increased from RM100,000 to RM180,000. This stress the business is relying more on short-term borrowing to support daily operations. Efficiency has also weakened. Inventory days increased from 50 to 55 days, which is risky for a restaurant because ingredients are perishable. Receivables days increased from 7 to 12 days, meaning customers are taking longer to pay. Together, this change puts pressure on working capital. The loss is not only an income statement issue, it is also starting to affect the statement of financial position because the business has less cash and more short-term debt. I will now hand over to Yue Yao, who will discuss the key financial risks and the break-even analysis.
Thank you, Ewan. I'm Yue Yao. I will now explain the key financial risks and then link them to our break-even analysis. From the financial data, we can see several risks, but the important part is that these risks are connected. First, there is profitability risk. The business is already loss-making, and if food costs continue to rise faster than revenue, the loss may become larger. Second, there is liquidity risk. The current ratio is only 1.00, so the business has no real safety margin. One difficult month could make it harder to pay suppliers on time. Third, there is working capital risk. inventory is moving more slowly, and receivables are taking longer to collect. This means more cash is tied up inside the business. Finally, there is financing risk. Short-term loan increased by 80%, which adds pressure when the business is already making a loss. Overall, the business make each other worse. Higher costs reduce profit, weaker profit reduce cash flow, and weaker cash flow leads to more borrowing. This is why our strategy evaluation must consider both profitability and cash flow, not just revenue growth. To understand how far Celesta is from profitability, we applied cost volume profit analysis. The average selling price per meal is RM45 and the variable food cost is RM25. So each meal gives a contribution of RM20. This RM20 is used to cover fixed costs and then generate profit. Fixed costs are RM1.8 million. If we divide RM1.8 million by RM20, the break-even point is 90,000 meals. However, Celesta currently serves only 80,000 meals. This means there is a shortfall of about 10,000 meals. In contribution terms, that is around RM200,000, which is broadly consistent with the reported RM180,000 loss. The small difference is likely due to rounding and the simplified cost assumption in the case. This gives management a clear target. Celesta either needs to sell around 10,000 more meals or reduce fixed costs so that it can break even at its current sales volume. In other words, delivery mainly addresses the volume side, while automation mainly addresses the fixed cost side. The first strategy is online delivery. The benefit is clear. Delivery may increase meal volume by around 50% to 20%, especially during off-peak hours when the kitchen is not fully used. This seems useful because our CVP analysis shows that Celesta needs more volume to close the 10,000 meal gap. However, delivery should not be judged by revenue growth alone. Platform commissions of 20% to 30%, plus packaging and order handling costs will reduce the contribution from each other. There is also a strategy risk. Celesta is an upscale restaurant, so poor delivery quality could damage the premium image that supports its RM45 price. Therefore, the key question is not simply whether delivery increases sales. The key question is whether delivery brings additional profitable orders without replacing dine-in customers. Yifei will now explain whether this additional delivery volume is financially enough to close the contribution gap.
Thank you, Yao and Yifei, and I will now evaluate the financial impacts of the proposed strategies. For dine-in meals, the contribution is RM20 per meal. For delivery, the contribution is much lower. If the selling price is RM45 and platform commission is 25%, the commission alone is RM11.25 per order. After deducting the RM25 food costs, the contribution falls to RM8.75 per delivery order. Before even considering packaging costs, this is less than half of the dine-in contribution, so delivery volume is not as valuable as dine-in volume. Earlier, we identified a contribution shortfall of about RM200,000 as RM8.75 contribution per delivery order. Several Russia would need around 22,900 additional delivery orders to close this gap. This is about 29% of current annual volume, which is higher than management's expected 15 to 20% increase. Therefore, delivery may help with short-term volume, but it is unlikely to restore profitability on its own. Delivery has three main risks. First, lower contribution. Each delivery order contributes only RM8.75 compared with RM20 for dine-in. If delivery replaces dine-in consumers instead of adding new consumers, profitability could become worse. Management should track whether delivery orders are truly additional. Second, quality and brand risk. Once food leaves the restaurant's temperature, presentation, and consumer experience are harder to control. This is important because Several Russia depends on its premium brand image. Third, operational pressure. Delivery orders may overload the kitchen during busy periods, especially if the team is already scratched. To reduce these risks, we recommend starting with one delivery platform and limited high-margin menu. Delivery should begin as a controlled pilot, not fully scale expansion. The second strategy is kitchen automation. Unlike delivery, automation does not mainly focus on increasing sales. It focuses on reducing the cost base. The initial investment is RM400,000. Current staff costs are RM972,000. If automation reduces staffing requirements by 20 to 30%, annual staff saving could range from RM194,400 to RM291,600 after deducting estimated maintenance and depreciation of RM70,000 to 90,000 per year. The net annual benefits would be around Rm 104,400 to Rm 221,600 at the midpoint. This is about Rm 163,000 per year. Based on this midpoint estimate, the payback period is about 2.45 years. This is reasonable for a long-term investment. However, this estimate does not include financing costs. Since Several Russia only has Rm 60,000 cash, it cannot simply pay for automation using internal funds. If the business borrows or leases the equipment, interest or lease payments will reduce the actual net benefit and may extend the payback period. Wenle will now explain how automation affects the cost structure and comparable strategies.
Thank you, Yifei. I'm Wenle, and I will now discuss operating gearing and compare the two strategies. Operating gearing means how sensitive profit is to changes in sales value. When fixed costs are high, a small change in sales can create a large change in profit. This is Series Russell's current problem. Fixed costs are Rm 1.8 million, and each mil contributes Rm 20. So every 1,000 mil above or below break-even change profit by about Rm 20,000. Automation can reduce this pressure. If fixed costs fall to around Rm 1.58 million to Rm 1.69 million, the break-even point will fall to around 79,000 to 84,500 mils. This is important because Series Russell currently serves 80,000 mils. At the lower end of the estimate, the business could become profitable even without major sales growth. Delivery does the opposite. It adds volume, but each order has a lower contribution, so it does not reduce the fixed cost problem. Automation is stronger in the long term, but it also has risks. The first risk is financing. The investment is Rm 400,000 while cash is only Rm 60,000. If management uses its existing cash, the business may face a liquidity crisis. A bank loan or equipment leasing arrangement would be safer because the cost can be spread over time. The second risk is implementation. During the transition, the business may carry both existing staff costs and new automation costs. Staff will also need training. For this reason, automation should be introduced gradually, starting with repetitive, high-volume kitchen tasks. Management should also communicate clearly with the staff because automation may create concern about job security and affect morale. This matters because service quality depends not only on equipment, but also on experienced and motivated employees. The third risk is the service quality. Series Russell is a premier restaurant, so automation must not damage food quality or customers' experience. It should support kitchen efficiency, not replace the restaurant's culinary standards. When we compare both strategies, they solve different problems. Delivery is a short-term value strategy. It can increase sales and may help you spare kitchen capacity during off-peak hours. But the contribution per order is low because of platform commission and packaging costs. So delivery can support cash flow, but it does not solve the cost structure problem. Automation is a long-term cost strategy. It does not directly increase revenue, but it reduces the fixed cost base and lower the break-even point. This addresses the root cause of the loss more directly. However, automation requires capital, and Series Russell's liquidity is already weak, so it cannot be implemented immediately without careful financing. Therefore, the key decision is not simply which strategy is better. The key decision is sequencing. Which action should come first and which should come later. I will now hand it back to Nelson for our recommendation.
Thank you, Wenle. Based on this comparison, we do not recommend a full-scale commitment to either strategy immediately. Series Russell has both a short-term cash flow problem and a long-term cost structure problem, so a phased approach is more suitable. Phase 1, in the first 1 to 3 months, should focus on stabilizing cash flow. Management should launch a controlled delivery pilot using only one platform and a limit high-margin menu. At the same time, it should improve working capital by collecting receivables faster and negotiating better supply payment terms. The pilot should only continue if delivery contribution per orders remain positive and delivery orders are clearly additional, not replacing die-in customer. Phase 2, from months 4 to 12, should focus on preparing for automation. If the delivery pilot produces a positive contribution, management can continue it selectively. During this period, Series Russell should also explore bank loans or equipment leasing, rather than using it limit cash balance. Phase 3, from months 12 to 24, should introduce automation gradually. The business should start with repetitive, high-volume kitchen tasks and monitor whether staff cost savings are actually achieved. This sequence matters. Delivery can help with short-term volume and cash flow, but it cannot fix the cost problem. Automation can fix the cost problem, but it is too risky to fund immediately without improving liquidity first. To conclude, Series Russell still has strong customer demand, but its costs have become too high. Even though revenue increased, profit fell because food costs, staff costs, utilities, and other expenses grew faster than sales. Our CVP analysis show that restaurant needs about 19,000 meals to break even, but it is currently serving only 18,000 meals. This means there is still a gap that management need to address. To solve these issues, we recommend a phased approach. First, Test delivery channels to increase sales and improve cash flow. Second, strengthen working capital and secure suitable financing. Finally, introduce automation gradually to reduce costs and lower the break-even point over time. The key KPI management should monitor are net profit margin, cash balance, current ratio, delivery contribution per orders, staff costs as a percentage of revenue, and break-even meals. Finally, management should remember that success is not only about the numbers. Food quality, customer experience, staff morale, and brand reputation are just as important for the long-term success of the business. Thank you. And this is our AI declaration form.